Hello students, good morning. In this lecture we will study about IC engine terminology and working of 4-stroke diesel engine. Now first of all we will discuss about IC engine terminology. IC engine terminology, in this topic we will study bore, top dead center, bottom dead center, and stroke compression ratio, cylinder volume, swept volume, and clearance volume. Now in this slide you can see the various positions of the engine. Now if the position of the piston is at extreme top in the engine cylinder, if the position of the piston is at the extreme top in the engine cylinder, then that position is called top dead center and briefly written as TDC. You can also see in this slide TDC. TDC is the extreme top position of the piston in the engine cylinder. Now extreme bottom position of the piston in the engine cylinder, that is called BDC, bottom dead center. Now one more term, bore. Bore is called the internal diameter of the engine cylinder. Internal diameter of the engine cylinder, that is called bore, and it is measured in millimeter. Now our next is the clearance volume. Our next topic in the IC engine terminology, that is clearance volume. Clearance volume is called the volume contained in the cylinder below the cylinder head and above the top of the piston when the piston is at TDC position is called clearance volume and briefly written as VC. Now our next topic is stroke. Stroke is the distance traveled by the piston. So you can also see in the slide stroke. Stroke is the distance traveled by the piston from the extreme top position to the extreme bottom position. Distance traveled by the piston from extreme top position to the extreme bottom position, that is called stroke. It is also measured in millimeter units. You can also see in this terminology part, you can also see the top dead center extreme position reached by the piston at the top of the cylinder, that is called top dead center, and extreme position reached by the piston at the bottom of the cylinder, that is called bottom dead center. Now stroke, I already explained that the nominal distance traveled by the piston in the cylinder between two extreme positions, that is TDC and BDC, is called stroke. Now one more term that is related to the IC engine terminology, that is compression ratio. Compression ratio, it is the ratio of maximum cylinder volume to the clearance volume. Compression ratio, it is the ratio of maximum cylinder volume to the clearance volume, and now that is cylinder volume. Cylinder volume, it is basically the total volume, that is sum of the swept volume and clearance volume. Mathematically you can describe this as V is equal to Vs plus Vc, where Vs is the stroke volume and Vc is the clearance volume. Here you can see that swept volume, it is the volume of the space generated by the movement of the piston from one dead center to the another dead center, and clearance volume, it is the space in the cylinder when the piston is at TDC position. You know in this slide you can see the clearance volume. When the piston is at topmost position, the space contained in at this portion is called clearance volume, and here extreme position of the piston at T top, that is called top dead center, and you can see here bottom dead center, and here it is the stroke, the distance traveled by the piston. Now after explaining the engine terminology, we will discuss about the working principle of four-stroke diesel engine. Why it is called a four-stroke, we will discuss it in the later on. Here this one is a simple example picture that will describe four-stroke diesel engine, railway engine. Now content that will be discussed in four-stroke diesel engine, that is about its introduction, history, working of four-stroke diesel engine, its diagram, basic components, basic terms used in while explaining the four-stroke diesel engine, advantages of using four-stroke diesel engine over two-stroke engine, and disadvantages of a four-stroke engine. Now our first topic, that is diesel engine, basically internal combustion engine. I already explained it. It is mostly used for transportation purposes, relatively more efficient as compared to two-stroke engine. And here is the person, Rudolf Diesel, who German mechanical engineer, who invented this engine, four-stroke diesel engine. Now our next is the working of four-stroke diesel engine. You can see in this slide that there are four strokes to complete one cycle, like suction stroke, compression stroke, expansion stroke, and exhaust stroke. Now we will discuss each stroke one by one. First of all, we will discuss suction stroke. No, this is called suction stroke. Now in this suction stroke, the inlet valve open, and during this stroke only air is entered in the engine cylinder. The exhaust valve remain closed. When the piston reaches the BDC, the suction stroke is completed as shown in the slide. Now as you can see that in this slide, inlet valve is open. Now from here air is entered in the engine cylinder, and air is entered in the engine cylinder till the piston reaches at BDC position. Now when the piston reach at BDC position, inlet valve will close. Now you can see in the next stroke, compression stroke. In this stroke, both inlet valve and outlet valve, both valves are closed, and piston move from lowermost bottom position to the topmost position, that is called TDC position. Both the valves remain closed. The upward movement of the piston, compresses the air to a very high pressure, about 40 to 45 bar, depending upon the design of the engine, and also increases the temperature of the air from room temperature to 650 degrees centigrade, which is very high to ignite the fuel. When at the end of the compression stroke, a fine spray of fuel is injected by the fuel injector in this hot air. Now this ignites the fuel, and injection of the fuel takes place at constant pressure. Injection of the fuel that will takes place at a constant pressure. Now when the ignition of the fuel takes place, a very high pressure is generated during this compression stroke. Now in this stroke, that is called power stroke or expansion stroke. Now at this, you can see in this slide, both the valves are closed. Due to increased pressure or due to the combustion of great pressure is generated due to combustion of the fuel, the piston will push downward with a large force. Due to very high force, expansion of the gas takes place and work is done during this stroke, and this stroke is also called power stroke. The power stroke is completed as the piston reaches from TDC position to BDC position. The power generated during this stroke is stored in the flywheel for its further utilization in the other stroke, like suction, compression, and exhaust. Now our next stroke, that is called exhaust stroke. This one is the last stroke. In this stroke, exhaust valve, you can see in the diagram, exhaust valve, where exhaust valve is opened, and when the piston reach exhaust valve is open and inlet valve remain closed. The piston move from BDC position to TDC position, mean from bottom dead center to top dead center, and push the burnt gases out from the engine cylinder. The exhaust stroke is completed as the piston reaches to the TDC position. Now, when the piston reach at TDC position again, the exhaust stroke is completed and the engine is ready to begin for the next cycle again. Mean again engine the working cycle starts from the suction stroke. Now the engine complete its cycle during the 4 steps like suction, compression and power stroke, and after that exhaust stroke. Now this process completed in 4 steps. That's why this engine is called 4-stroke diesel engine. Now after that advantages of 4-stroke diesel engine. First main advantages of 4-stroke diesel engine is that it is more efficient as compared to 2-stroke diesel engine, more reliable, more durable, more can be easily accepted to the synthetic fuel, produce nominal amount of carbon monoxide, release less amount of harmful gases as compared to 2-stroke, because it is more efficient as compared to 2-stroke diesel engine or 2-stroke engine. Now disadvantages, there are some disadvantages of 4-stroke diesel engine, that it is relatively more expensive. Cost of this engine is relatively high, and occasionally servicing cost is also more as compared to other engine. Generally this engine produces more noise. Now in this slide, this one is animated. You can see the working of the completion of all these strokes like suction, compression and others, expansion and exhaust stroke. You see in this slide also. This is video animated. Now you can see that in the first suction is complete, and at this point compression, and here exhaust stroke complete. Again suction start, compression. Again you can see this. Thank you. In the next lecture we will discuss again about the working of 2-stroke engine. Thank you.